I followed some older kids in my neighborhood to what I thought they were going to burglarize a home.
This is Shawn Khalifa describing the biggest mistake of his life.
I thought maybe I could go steal something from the house.
It was January 2004, and Shawn was just a few days past his 15th birthday. He and a friend acted as lookouts while the other two boys went into the house, according to court documents.
And a few seconds later, the door opens, and the 18-year-old kid, Juan Pena, he grabs me by the shirt and pulls me in the house. And he's yelling. He's like, "Is this what you wanted to see? Is this what you wanted to see?" So I look over to where he's pointing, and Mr. Love is dead on his living room floor.
The two boys had savagely tortured and beat 77-year-old Hubert Love to death. Then they took his car and sped away. In the car, more violence. One of the young men shot his main accomplice in the head. Khalifa swears he had no idea his friends could commit such heinous acts, but he kept quiet. He now says it was because he feared for his own life after seeing one friend murder the other. However, he also takes responsibility for getting into that situation. Looking back, Khalifa admits he was a thief and ran with a bad crowd.
But I was very selfish at that time. At my 15-year-old self, I was clearly becoming a criminal in my neighborhood. Like, we're stealing, I was comfortable with stealing, and for me to be comfortable with the point of leaving Mr. Love on his floor, clearly something was wrong with me, and I had a criminal way of thinking.
Khalifa was convicted of first-degree murder, even though he had no prior knowledge of the killings and wasn't in the house when they were committed. He was sentenced to 25 years to life and spent 3 years in juvenile hall, then was transferred to Donovan State Prison in San Diego. He is serving this sentence because of California's felony murder rule, which allows a defendant to be charged with murder for a killing that happened during a dangerous felony, even if the defendant is not the killer.
If one participant goes off on his or her own and kills somebody, all participants are equally liable for first-degree murder under the felony murder rule.
Kate Chatfield is an advisor at the criminal justice advocacy organization, the Justice Collaborative. She says a new California law limited the rule. It says people can't be convicted of murder unless they were the actual killer, helped the killer, or, quote, acted with reckless indifference to human life. The new law says people sentenced under the felony murder rule can apply for resentencing.
SB 1437 is not just a get-out-of-jail-free card for people who are in prison. They have to petition the superior court in their county in which they were sentenced.
Chatfield says there isn't a good tracking system, but she estimates up to 800 people in California could be eligible for reduced sentences under the law. But the law has powerful opponents.
It essentially allows people to get away with murder.
San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan is one of several California DAs who are opposing the new law in court. They say it violates the state's mandatory minimum sentencing and provides a loophole that savvy killers could exploit.
If they all wear masks and you can't determine who shot the gun, then all 3 or 4 or 2 will get away with murder.
But this doesn't describe what Khalifa did. He helped a robbery that turned into a murder. Stephan says there are other ways people like him can get reduced sentences.
Well, they could petition for resentencing if they truly had a lesser role.
She says San Diego is the first county to cut someone's sentence under the new law that took effect this year. Khalifa has asked the Riverside courts for a lesser sentence multiple times and has been denied. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what it has been like to grow from a boy into a man while behind bars. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Oh, that was right before.
Oh yeah,
That's right before.
right before he was arrested.
Colleen Khalifa spreads out photos of her son Shawn in her San Juan Capistrano home. Her daughter Jennifer and grandson Jackson lean over the table to look.
Is that your uncle? Jackson, where's Uncle Shawn?
At San Diego.
Shawn Khalifa is in Donovan State Prison. He's 15 years into a sentence of 25 years to life for murder. But no one is claiming he killed anyone.
When Shawn was first arrested, I called people, lawyers, and I said, felony murder. They told me right off the bat, you've lost. You're going to visit your son for the rest of his life in prison.
He acted as lookout for 2 older teenagers when they robbed a house and killed the homeowner. Though Shawn Khalifa had no idea they were going to kill the man and wasn't in the house when the murder took place, he was still convicted of felony murder. This is because of a long-established legal doctrine in California that allows prosecutors to file felony murder charges against suspects, even if, like Khalifa, they weren't directly involved in the killing. But late last year, then-Governor Jerry Brown signed a law that allows prisoners in this position to apply for a lesser sentence. The Khalifas now have hope, but they're still not sure Shawn will be free. That's because district attorneys are challenging the new law in court.
It's been a huge roller coaster. Yes. I mean, we get our hopes up and then the pain all comes back again because we're let down. So the roller coaster ride has been horrendous.
And I've had some hope at different points during my incarceration.
This is Shawn Khalifa on the phone from prison.
And at one point I exhausted my appeal process, so the waiting of appeals was over, and I was just kind of reserving myself to spending my life in prison. So to have this newfound hope, it can be stressful.
Stressful because he feels stuck in a permanent state of limbo.
Because the only thing I can plan for is to be in prison for the rest of my life, and that's the only thing that seems to make life bearable and comfortable is just being acclimated to this environment.
So Khalifa has made a life for himself in prison in case he doesn't get out. He's written books, plays, and has a podcast.
It's extraordinary to have this hope of getting out, but at the same time, that increases one's vulnerability tremendously to disappointments around setbacks.
Alan Mobley runs Project Rebound, which helps people transition out of prison and earn college degrees. He considers the felony murder rule that put Khalifa away a byproduct of the mass incarceration era.
Many laws, draconian in nature, were brought into existence in response to both the politicization and then also increased public concern about drug use and drug trafficking.
In recent years, the pendulum has swung the other way, with national criminal justice reform and state rollbacks to things like 3-strike sentencing. But these changes are often met with resistance.
I just don't believe in unsafe reform that tramples over a victim's rights.
San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan is among the district attorneys challenging the law in court. She says she supports criminal justice reform, but feels the changes to the felony murder rule go too far.
Criminal justice reform has to weigh the constitutional rights of everybody, of victims, of offenders, of public safety.
But some see juveniles with life sentences as victims of a harsh system and of human brain development.
It's kind of a dangerous time for many people, and some adolescents are likely to take risks.
Terry Jernigan runs the Center for Human Development at UC San Diego and leads a national study looking at adolescents' brains.
Young people during adolescence do have a perfectly natural spike in their impulsive behaviors, and this does result in more mistakes in judgment.
And she says court sentences should take that into consideration, though she didn't know about Khalifa's particular case.
So we know that this is a relatively temporary condition, and that the same individuals that will make poor judgments will not be prone to make those same kinds of decisions and judgments at a later point.
Are you going to have fun with your new friends?
Back at the Khalifa household, Colleen is ready for her son to come home.
I know that he's been through a living hell. And I can't believe that he's kept his integrity still intact and his empathy and passion for others.
She hopes he will have the chance to display these traits outside the prison walls. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
A man who'd been in prison for 16 years is now free and figuring out what to do next. He'd been sentenced under the state's felony murder rule, which says people can be convicted of murders they were present for but didn't actually commit. That law changed last year, and now KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser has an update on his story.
Shawn Khalifa wanders the campus at San Diego State University, taking in the crowds of students rushing to class.
I'm loving it.
Isn't too much for you right now?
No, I went to the library earlier. I loved it.
College is one of the many things Khalifa missed. He went to prison at age 15 and is now 31. He's touring SDSU with the hopes of enrolling as a student in a few years.
That's Khalifa heaven, as a library.
His life took a dark turn when, as a teenager in Riverside County, he participated in a home invasion. He acted as lookout while two of his friends savagely beat the homeowner, Hubert Love, to death. Khalifa says the plan was to rob him, but he had no idea they would kill him. But he was still convicted under California's felony murder rule, which allows the defendant to be charged with murder for a killing that happened during a dangerous felony, even if the defendant is not the killer. But then, last year, new hope. A new law removed much of the felony murder rule and allowed prisoners like Khalifa to apply for a lesser sentence. District attorneys in the state, including San Diego DA Summer Stephan, challenged the law change, but this week the California Supreme Court rejected their challenge. That means there's no question Khalifa will remain free. He sat down with KPBS to talk about his journey.
I started letting it sink in and letting go and starting to embrace the fact that I was going home and it wasn't going to be stopped this time. And I got to embody it and feel it. You could just feel the stress like melt off of you when you kind of know you're going home instead of just thinking it's possible.
Have you spoken to the victim's family at all?
I have not. It would be nice to make living amends and have dialogue with them in the future, but I understand currently my release is not something that they're excited about or happy. They're probably worried and they're going through a lot of stress themselves. So I think the best thing is just time.
What would you want to say to them?
I would just want to let them know that personally, it was a tragedy in my life as well that Mr. Love lost his life. And it's something I have to live with forever, just knowing that I was there, like I showed up and that I didn't get him help that day. That's something I live with the rest of my life, and I'll spend the rest of my life making living amends for that.
So you've been in prison for more than 15 years?
Yeah, 16 exactly, a couple of days over.
Are you worried about fitting back into normal life?
What's so exciting is that when I came back out, it felt like I never left, because I've always been goofy. I've always liked to make people laugh. I've always been silly, but before I was a criminal, so I thought like a criminal, and I had all these criminal attributes like stealing and lying, but now to be out here and to be able to make people laugh, but have these humble experience that I've gotten, like while in prison, all the groups I've taken, like all the work I've done on myself, to come out here and now exhibit humbleness, kindness, compassion, helping strangers, like I just love it. I'm like super excited. I'm fitting right into society.
Other things that you want to say?
There's a guy named Joshua Nichols who was a former lifer I was hanging out with the other day. He said it's called survivor's guilt, where you feel bad for the guys you left behind. So that's just one thing I want to share, that there's still guys in there that don't need to be incarcerated. So hopefully that's what restorative justice does eventually. That's why I'm wearing this shirt.
Shawn Khalifa's mom, Colleen Khalifa, is thrilled to have her son home. She says she doesn't worry about him reintegrating into society at all.
When I see the look of happiness and joy on his face, and I know who he is and his strong character, I can't worry. I can't worry about him because I know he's going to be fine.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And Khalifa is now living in Escondido and is involved in youth mentorship and the restorative justice program at Southwestern College.